at the start of this call that you're going to hear from Janelle. And so I want to take this opportunity to introduce Janelle Feltz. She is a nurse. She is an amazing volunteer leader slash instruments volunteer on our Kansas City team. She actually is in Denver right now taking this call, but she made sure to lead a group on Sunday right before she drove out to Denver. She also is the president and founder of an organization called Wellness for Africa. And we have partnered with them sending containers, but there is a whole lot of other elements to the work that they do. And so I am very inspired by Janelle when I see her in the warehouse and I see her telling her story to her volunteers. And so she was gracious enough to join us on this call to share some of the stories about their work with all of you. And so I'm going to share my screen, but everyone, if you could give some waves or some rounds of applause to Janelle for joining us today. Thanks.
Well, Danny, thanks for that wonderful introduction. I know you've been following me around for months, trying to get me to sit still long enough to talk about that which I do. So I'm going to begin by giving a brief overview of how I found Project Cure and how I got into what I do. So I'm a retired nurse. I worked in the intensive care, surgical intensive care. I've worked in cardiothoracic surgery. I've worked in the operating room for outpatient, and now I'm happily retired. But in 2012, when I lived in St. Paul, Minnesota, my then daughter, who was a junior in high school, came home and she said to me, "Mom, our school's going to do a mission trip in Africa, and I really want to go. They're looking for medical help, but I'm afraid to go by myself. Will you come with us?" So I said, "Well, I'll throw my hat in there and see if they pick me, and sure, I'll be a chaperone." Actually, I was shocked that she would want me to go with her and boss all of her friends around. So it was a wonderful opportunity for me to spend both time with her and also just see what this mission work was all about. So we went again, in 2013. I went in 2013 for the first time. And we partner with a group of Dominican missionary sisters that are in Africa, in Nigeria, Zambia, Zimbabwe. But I just went to a city called, it's actually a rural area called Ndola, Zambia, which is up along the Tanzanian border. So when I got there, not knowing what I was in for or what I would see, I was so happy to see that they had a real health clinic. I mean, it was only 4 rooms, and they did minimal screening. And but I thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to be able to find a place to offer some help here. The sisters all are primarily an education-based order. This little hospital that I volunteer with and partner with is called St. Dominic's Mission Hospital. And it is the only medical facility that the sisters support. So when we go over there, we work in all of their areas that they support. So they have an orphanage called St. Anthony's Home for the Vulnerable and the Abandoned. They have a school for the poor. In Zambia, you cannot attend school unless you have a pair of shoes and the government issued uniform. So the sisters cater to all of those children that are willing to learn but cannot supply shoes or a uniform because of their level of poverty. The name of their school is called Barefoot, and they named it because most of their students did come to school, walked from all areas of this community without shoes. And then the third area that they work at is actually the clinic. So the pictures you're seeing, the first, if you could back up one, please, Danny. This is the orphanage, okay? And you can see Dr. Sicoli on the left is examining one of the boys' throat, and then we also examine the teeth. So every year when we go over there, we go to the orphanage, which houses about 75 children, and we provide the fluoride treatments, the sealant we put on their teeth every year so that they don't get cavities. They don't have access to toothbrushes and toothpastes. And so when they get a toothache, They just pull the tooth. So this will hopefully start a kind of start at groundwork for us to protect the teeth of the children in this area. We also go to the schools that the sisters work in, which is usually around 600 students, that we apply these sealants over the course of a week. You can see there's a couple of student volunteers with these children. The other picture is a group of children that we were playing with at the orphanage. So next, I'm going to talk a little bit about the field work. So this is a group of people that are waiting out in the bush. It's now referred to in Zambia as outreach. And they have this building in the back that St. Dominic's Mission Hospital has a team that goes out to on a cyclic basis once a month and delivers HIV drugs, AIDS drugs, tuberculosis drugs. We test for malaria, and this is actually the exam room. And we also do prenatal exams. And during the prenatal exams, it can get pretty emotional because 1 in 4 women in Zambia is raped by the time they're 13 or 16. So there's a real high incidence of young teenage mothers. And they live out in this area in kind of a tribal kind of community setting and don't have a lot of access to food. They all share. And their biggest fear each month when we go out there is that the baby's head circumference, which is a reflection of nutritional status, and the baby's weight. So if their baby's head circumference doesn't grow over the course of a month or they lose weight, I mean, they'll burst into tears because they know that their baby's malnourished. So these are exams that we provide. And if we find in the field a patient that needs attention, the sisters will send somebody back out to this area and pick them up and take them into the hospital and give them the treatment they need. This photo right here is one of my board members. He's a co-founder, Dr. Rob Sicoli. He's a pediatric specialist out of Minneapolis, St. Paul. He's the head of the emergency room department for both the children's hospitals in St. Paul and Minneapolis. And he's working with students here, and we are doing malaria tests, finger prick tests. So, I would say 90% of those that we test in the field are always positive. We take the treatment with us. It's a 5-day course of tablets for malaria. And that way we can keep it at bay and they don't get the severe consequences of having chronic malaria. The other thing that I found really interesting was, you see in the pictures of the little toddlers running around with their little chubby bellies and they're kind of waddling when they walk and they're all happy. Well, those chubby bellies in the field are primarily caused by parasites, worms. So when we're out there, we also administer tablets so that we can eliminate these parasites on behalf of these children. So our students that accompany us, they'll play jump rope and blow bubbles and take stickers while we assess the women. Never do we see a man come in. They don't come in for HIV drugs. They don't come in for TB, but the women will come to the clinic. The next area that we work in is the School for the Poor. This is a picture at the Barefoot School, and you can see their motto above the chalkboard that says, I can do it. It's all over they only have 2 classrooms. But nonetheless, this is a group of students, and the way they split their students up, they only have 2 classrooms, is by academic level. So you may find a 6-year-old that's coming to the school for the first time, but he might be in the room with a 12-year-old who is getting the first chance to come to school. So if a child is willing to learn, they will teach them, and they teach them at the same rate that they're intellectually at academically. And their ultimate goal is to try to get everyone that comes through this school to be able to read and write so they can get a job. They also offer trade education. The boys learn some woodworking skills and the girls learn to sew. You can see the wall conditions. This is the students. We always paint freshly. The classrooms are two of them when we go each year, and they get beat up pretty badly. But that's a part of what the student volunteers do on an annual basis. This is the beginning of how I got to where I am today. So on the left, these are the medical supplies that our team would transport by way of duffel bags each year. I volunteered in a similar organization in Minneapolis, St. Paul, called Global Health Ministries, and they had a very small operation. The footprint of their building was only that of about a Walgreens store, but when we would go over each June, they would let me pack a bag for each traveler with near expired supplies. So when my daughter and I left the first year after our mission trip, we looked at each other and said, "Oh my gosh, Mom, what can we do?" So I immediately thought, well, we'll transport supplies. So we did that until the outbreak of COVID. And at that point in time, I had the bags all packed. I had since moved to Kansas City from Minneapolis, St. Paul, and I was really pretty upset to move because I thought my connection to Zambia was going to be severed, that I would no longer have access to supplies. I couldn't travel with the students because I'd have to travel up there. But as the good Lord would, I think, provide, He provided a pathway for me to meet Sister Andrea Katner, who is the founder of Franciscan Mission Warehouse in Kansas City, who ultimately merged with Project Cure. So in meeting Sister, I told her my story. She told me about her mission work. I told her I had half these bags packed. What am I going to do with them now? I don't want them to go to waste. And she said, well, send them. I said, well, okay. But she said, yeah, just ship them over there yourself. So I unpacked all the bags and I sent 10 barrels of supplies that year at $300 a barrel. And they got there safe and sound, delivered to the doorsteps of the hospital. But also in that conversation, Sister said, what are you going to do next year? And I said, well, we both knew that COVID wasn't going to be resolved in a year. So I did some soul searching and I took the leap and I started a nonprofit because I thought the only way I could help that hospital sustain regular supplies, consumables, was to ship them. After I heard Sister Andrea's story, she told me, there's always a shipment you could maybe earn the money and send a container out of Kansas City from Project Cure. And so when Project Cure opened in Denver, I also was there. I helped set it up, sorted instruments, set up the fine sort area, et cetera, and ultimately started fundraising. It took me 18 months, and I have two partners, an endodontist in Minneapolis, St. Paul, and then Dr. Sicoli, and collectively we raised the funds to send our first shipment. It left on September 9th of 2021 and arrived on 3 days before Christmas. A parade of Zambians following this truck, as you see, into the grounds of the hospital, and mainly out of curiosity. And they couldn't have been more thrilled. As you saw in the picture, if you'll back up one, Danny, back up two, please. They had to move that tree trunk physically to get that container onto the grounds before they could start unpacking it. Okay, you can go on, Danny. So we did load this container here in Denver and had a wonderful experience. You can see other than the signage that we put on the back of a storage cabinet, it says, "You treat, God cures." That's the motto of the hospital at St. Dominic's Mission Hospital in Zambia. It's "We treat, God cures." So we put that poster up. I wore my Zambian shirt that the sisters had given me, and the first container set sail. So this is a couple of photos of the sisters unpacking it. And believe it or not, it arrived there at the peak of COVID, and they had no remaining PPE. The PPE in Zambia was all sequestered by the government, redistributed and rationed at their beck and call. So when this shipment arrived, the sisters were allotted one pair of exam gloves a day in patient care, which they washed their hands as if they didn't have gloves on, and hoped and carefully provided patient care throughout the day without putting a hole in their gloves and potentially getting cross-contamination. So they were thrilled to get this container and the timing of it. I'm going to go to the next one, Danny. Here is Dr. Muki. It's Dr. Mukashima on the right. He is the only physician that treats patients at this hospital. He's getting his first ever defibrillator. And you can see it was on the container from Project Cure. He was thrilled. He lives on the grounds of the hospital, and he was actually a Rwandan refugee during the genocide. His whole family was murdered while he was doing a mission trip out of Rwanda, and that's how he ended up in Zambia, and he's never left. So there's the first ultrasound they've ever had, and the gentleman that runs it guards it with his life. He thinks he's like all that in his radiology department, and truly he is, because the major patient population that they serve is the mother-child. So they have to do the ultrasounds for the pregnant women. The next one. So in addition to the work we've done with containers, you'll see this is the dentist or the endodontist that's my partner, Dr. Eric Gretzner, and he's working in a very old, ill-equipped dental unit right there. He brought almost all his own supplies. He has actually been involved with the mission work there longer than I have, 2 years. It started 2 years before I went. So this was one of the first areas that my organization decided that we would upgrade and modernize. And a lot of, he designed, you can take it to the next picture. This is the before. Here's the Project Cure supplies that arrived in the container, a full shipment of equipment that we could set up we could furnish a whole new dental clinic for them. And this is the after. This is the after picture of Wellness for Africa remodeling the space and Project Cure furnishing the space. They are very proud. And that sister on the left is actually a dentist. And over time, our organization and that of another organization in St. Paul put her through dental school. So the sisters are very self-sufficient in that way. The other area that we helped expand for Zambia, for St. Dominic's, is the operating room. That's myself there on the right, teaching some of the nurses, none of which had worked in the operating room. And you can see how sparsely equipped the room is. It's a brand new room because the government built a 2-room operating room for them, or a surgery department, and that but they didn't have any equipment. They could just do spinal anesthesia or local procedures. And then you can fast forward from that to now. Look at this. This year was our first ever group that I took over to Zambia in a furnished operating room. You can see the monitors in the back, the good overhead lights, the nice draped sheets, the cautery machines over kind of off to the right a little bit, but nonetheless, Project Cure did the vast majority of this equipment sourcing. So for that, I'll be forever grateful, because now my team is going to go back to Zambia every year and do what the Zambians or the St. Dominic's staff called surgery camp. So in October, when we went, we did 52 surgeries free for the poor. We brought as many supplies as we could, and we purchased all the drugs that they needed, antibiotics, dressings, everything in advance. And it could not have gone more beautifully. And actually, moving forward, that is where a majority of my efforts are going to be. And then lastly, this photo is amazing. So I went, this is a C-arm that was just delivered on February 13th of this year, after I fulfilled the fundraising requirements for a second container. This is one of very few C-arms in all of Zambia. And the gentleman in the middle is the gentleman that was earlier protecting his ultrasound machine. This guy is amazing. He's a radiographer, and he is so excited to be delivering the type of care that he can now deliver. So in closing, I've probably gone on a little long. In closing, I want to mention on the left here is Mr. Peter Feary. He's the head of the lab. And I stopped him and asked him if he would give me a few comments about the first container. And he basically said the timing of them receiving the first container was a absolute godsend because they had run out of PPE. They were afraid for their own exposure to the COVID-19 virus. And he said it made all the difference in the world that they could protect the healthcare workers and make them feel comfortable to continue to deliver care until the pandemic weakened over time. And on the right is a picture of the number 1 and number 2 sister in the Zambian sister order. The one in the back is the leader. Her name, anyhow, she has since, but they came out from their mother house to see the container get unloaded and to see what in the world Sister Elizabeth, the head of the hospital, had been talking about all this time. So in closing, I have to say that I am eternally grateful for the path that led me from Minnesota to Kansas City to Sister Cantner to the warehouse at Kansas City, and help set that up and get going, because quite honestly, without Project Cure, my organization doesn't exist.